A very good evening, educators, all those who are in the Zoom platform, as well as all on the Facebook. Creating an environment within your classroom where every student actively participates in their education is a major goal and key challenges for educators. An effective way to promoting active participation is through classroom dialogue. Unfortunately, many of our students have been educated out of actively being engaged in their education with the fear of making mistakes, years of passive learning, and extreme reluctance to enter into a dialogue. We have an eminent facilitator for our session today who will talk to you on this particular point. Learn to change the world. An alumni of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, her goals are synonymous with the institution's mission. As an educational administrator and leader, her passion is to promote student voice, choice and achievement and the growth of professional learning communities with a collaborative vision that makes powerful teaching and learning the central focus of schooling. Ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about the facilitator of today's masterclass, who is the most dynamic and talented principal of the early and primary school at Fazlani Academy Global and IB World School, Mrs. Mahera Goel. Mahera, please take over. Unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hore, for that lovely introduction. Good evening, everybody. If you're attending this today, then you probably have pressed the reset button and reimagining the traditional one-way lectures or lessons that are currently present in a lot of schools and classrooms. In today's digitally enabled era, we have to think smarter. Our students have smart apps with all the knowledge in the world at their fingertips. For them, listening passively just doesn't work anymore. They want to participate. They want to have a voice. So let's move on today's presentation. So I found this quote, and I thought it is so relevant and resonates with today's times. It says, "I can't understand why people are frightened of new ideas. I'm frightened of the old ones." And that's so true. We're now almost 5 months into a virtual classroom, and I'm just wondering, when we go back, what mindsets do we want our students to develop and take forward with them into the classrooms of tomorrow? What do your students currently equate with learning? Do students see schools as just a stack of probably workouts to be filled out, or just a teacher talking, or is it more about discovery and exploration? So using technology has become so important for these times, and of course, developing the 4Cs of the 20th century. So we're quickly going to see how are you feeling about the year ahead with virtual learning. So I think Lata has already shared with you this code. I'm just quickly going to pause the screen and go into the poll. If you can quickly go in and put your reflections about how you're feeling about the year ahead. You can also see the code here. we're just going to close the poll down. So I can see that a lot of people are feeling extremely confident, which makes me very happy. And we can extend what we're going to share today much faster than what I would have thought. So thank you for sharing. And you can keep, I can probably share this slide towards the end with the ABA team, and you can look at, how everyone is feeling. But I see everyone's feeling extremely confident, which is such a happy feeling. So let's move on now. So I'm just going to quickly share my lens for the last 4 months that have been, and where does my inspiration come from? I'd like to mention Mr. Sugata Mitra. I think people are familiar with him and heard him over webinars over the last 4 months. He's a professor of education technology, very well known for his hole in the wall and the granny cloud. And I think what he said helped me design the school in the cloud, a learning lab in India, where children can explore and learn from each other using resources and mentoring from the cloud. Isn't that true? And isn't that exactly what we are doing today? So I think he's a huge source of inspiration as I go into this presentation. I think somebody else that I'd like to mention.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
For today.
Could you please share the screen? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you heard about Sugata Mitra. I think the second person that I want to talk about is Dr. Irwin Scott. He was my professor at Harvard. And he said one thing always in all his lectures. He spoke a lot about relationships, and we'll see that as we go, is he said, cherish the person and challenge the employee. And that's really what we need to do, because I think when I even look at my own teachers and my faculty, I think I kind of cherish and reach out to everybody. But yes, we challenge each other every day in terms of learning. But I dovetailed this and made my own statement. And I thought, this is probably what holds true for this presentation, is cherish the child and challenge the student. So again, keep in mind, there are a lot of social emotional learning factors and there are technological hiccups. So cherish the child, but of course, we want to challenge the student and want him to participate. The next lens, which has always been part of me with, being with the IB, is, their mission. And this is in part, but this is so important, especially living in a world where we talk about inequity. It's so important that students start have a voice in the classroom, hear different perspectives, appreciate each other, because if they don't do it from an early age, they will not be able to understand that other people with their differences can also be right. And my fourth lens, of course, is my own school, where I've been working for the last 15 years. The tagline for my school says, a school where leaders evolve. And I think this is so important as we go about thinking the skills that we need to evolve a leader. And it's so important to have students be agents of their own learning and empower them to be responsible for their own learning. So these are my lenses, but what are we going to use together as a group today? We're going to use the 4 C's, thinking routine, as a guide for today's discussion. So what are some of the big ideas that we're going to look at today? Make the connections. How does it connect to what we already know? Challenges. What is it that we find challenging? And then what are some of the changes that we can make as we go ahead? So again, everything I'm doing at the presentation today, you can take back to your classroom. These are all very practical ideas. So I'm not going to go too much into the agenda. This has been shared, but of course, we are definitely going to look at some strategies and some discussion formats. Okay, so what are some of the assumptions that we hold as a team or as a group of teachers and leaders? Working remotely, as we all know, can be pretty lonely sometimes. Of course, we have technology that makes it possible now to meet in virtual space, but still it's hard to replace the human touch. We lack instant feedback, facial cues, gestures. And for this reason, creating enough space for interaction during our virtual meetings is absolutely critical. We all know the results when classroom dialogues turn into a monologue, or the whole group discussion that only 2 or 3 students dominate, or the brainstorming that manages to suppress divergent thinking. So I don't know if too many people are familiar with the fisheye syndrome that we talk about. So discussion, as you know, is a great tool for formative assessment also. It's one of the simplest and the quickest tools. By asking our students questions, we allow them to determine, or ourselves, to know it in seconds whether a student knows something. But when we allow a pattern to emerge where only our most confident and verbal kids respond, we miss the opportunity to assess the thinking of the others. And we may very well be fooling ourselves and looking into something that's called the fisheye syndrome. What is it really? It's like looking through a fisheye lens, the kind they use in peepholes. To those afflicted with fisheye, some students appear larger than others. They take up more energy, they grab our attention, and they make others fade. So say you have student Jack today in your classroom. You thought you had an absolutely interactive classroom, but you had Jack. He had a lot of questions today, but never found the right moment to ask. He doesn't like to. And there is John. Jordan is in that class too. He wasn't 100% sure of what you were saying or what the discussion was about. He definitely didn't want to ask. And then there could be Jill, and there could be Mary. These are the shy ones. So naturally, they stayed quiet. So maybe you always feel it's not me. There's no fish on the class. But sometimes the most interactive and engaged classrooms is where the fisheye actually lives. So go back and think tomorrow when you go back to your classrooms, is the fisheye syndrome existing in my classroom? Which brings us to something which is very near and dear to all of us as we go into the 21st century, inclusivity. How can we make our classrooms more inclusive? I've taken a simple definition, there are lots more. Inclusivity is defined as an intention of policy of including people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. And that in today's classrooms, we include even a regular student. We're not talking only about children with learning challenges. Our approach today is about thinking inclusivity as a verb and being inclusive. So quickly, we're going to do something in the chat box. You can probably type in, and Lata can probably share a few responses with me. They're fairly easy, but yes, still A or B. So we're going to look at a couple of slides and think A or B. Either you can think of what my class is, or you could even think of what your philosophy is. And of course, let's not forget C. Should it be A and C, or should it be B and C?
We are getting a lot of B's here.
Okay. Okay. So would you have B? Do you B in C today? Now that's the question that makes it even more challenging. So think about it, whether you're seeing B. I know many people will go for B. We've all become very clever with learning and teaching strategies. But do you see them C? Do you see them in your Zoom classrooms? Okay, let's move on to the next one. A or B? Okay, I want you to just read the descriptors right now and forget pedagogy and andragogy unless you're familiar with the terminologies. Just read them and then say A or B.
Again, a lot of B's here.
So I see a lot of people have said B's because of the descriptors. But if I were to ask you what is andragogy, you might, not be familiar. So let's just think about what is andragogy. So andragogy was actually a term that was coined by Malcolm Knowles. It's a theory. He's an American practitioner, and he's a theorist of adult education. And he defined andragogy as the art and science of helping adults learn. And you see these 6 principles, which says adults are internally motivated, they're self-directed, they're goal-oriented, they bring life experiences, they are relevancy-oriented, practical, and adult learners like to be respected. Now let's flip the coin. Now that you've all said B, what if you replace the word adults with children here or students here? What are your wonderings now? You think these principles apply to you, but do you apply them? That's the question that you should be asking yourself today. Can students be self-motivated and self-directed? Are we translating these adult principles to students? Which brings us then to our role. So what? A lot of us think about content. What? Am I going to teach this? And then, of course, we have our learning outcomes. That is, okay, I need to achieve this learning outcome. But now that we have looked at andragogy, shouldn't we be reversing our roles and thinking about why, how, and then the what? Because the why is so crucial and critical. If anybody's familiar with Science Next Golden Circle, he always starts with a why. Why is so important. It actually helps us think about what is it that we want to achieve first and then plan backwards. And if you all are familiar with the backward design process, you would also start thinking about the why first. So what is my role today? So all the strategies or ideas that I'm going to share with you is just something that I've curated. I'm just a curator. Our brains learn by grouping ideas and pieces of information as per science and brain, philosophy. And a lot of times you see, the museum is a great metaphor to use. That's what it does for us. It takes piles and piles of artifacts and selects only a few to represent an idea or a moment or a strategy. And that's exactly what I've done today. So a lot of you may be familiar. And again, please note that I am not stressing on the technology that you will see or the tool. It's more about our practices. How can we use technology in our virtual classrooms now with the same strategy that we were using in our face-to-face? So this is one of my favorite things which I use in most of my workshops, and that is a toolbox. And today, of course, we're going to fill our toolbox with a lot of protocols that I'll be sharing. So always have a toolbox. I would have even a toolbox in every classroom. What tools are your students learning? And as you go higher into secondary school, if you have a toolbox and students they can use it for anything that you give. They're comfortable and familiar with how these tools are used. So when we're thinking about using tools, there are certain structures, right? We're all familiar with these structures that we've been using, from explicit instruction to free discussion, individual learning routines, and finally, of course, the group learning. So let's see where the engagement is pretty high. So if you see, of course, group learning is where the student engagement is highest and explicit instruction is the lowest, which again brings me back to the fisheye syndrome and a monologue in the classroom. So think about the benefits of protocols. So again, they enhance the clarity of an open-ended discussion, again, distribute participation, and of course, kind of assumptions. Some things to consider in your classroom. Are you a class of 20 or are you a class of 60? Size matters. The identity, so important in today's classrooms. Who are your participants? How does this interact with your content? How does this interact with discussion patterns? Is your content culturally responsive? Again, go back to your facilitating style. When do we challenge ourselves to kind of, try new ways of facilitating? Very important is probably to think about how and what my students. Get to know your students. Students are more likely to participate if they feel they are recognized as individuals. Of course, we can do a whole workshop on good questioning, but just again, very important because we are talking about classroom dialogue. What are some of the prompts that you are throwing to your students? Again, we are not going to go into open-ended close. That's very basic, yes and no, as I said. But good questions are the key to a productive discussion. Again, asking too many questions at once, instructors often make that mistake. They'll ask a lot of questions together. What do you think the author is trying to say? Do you agree with me? Is this evidence convincing? Did you like this article? Students will definitely get confused. Or something that we all love doing, asking a question and then answering to yourself. We all have had this experience of asking a question only to encounter blank stares and silence. The temptation under these circumstances is to quickly jump and then answer the question, only so that you can relieve the uncomfortable silence. So again, think, is your question engaging and can have students respond? So we're going to watch a quick film. It's a short film, which makes us think about what are the talk moves we can use to extend discussions. The video may lag a bit, but you'll see the captions, so just pardon me for that.
When you're having a conversation, you're going to share your answers. But you're not only going to share your answers, you're going to respond to what other people say. We've looked at talk moves quite a few times and clarifying questions. It's about learning how to participate in an academic discussion, learning how to listen to what other people are saying and respond appropriately. What's the first talk move?
I agree with what they say because...
So you can agree. Say, oh, I said the same thing as Diana. I agree with what Diana said because that was crazy when that happened. Gia Lynn, how about the second one?
I want to add on to what Brain say. I think that...
I would love to hear you adding on to people's ideas. I'll read a couple more. You can disagree with someone. You can make a connection to what someone said. You can ask someone to explain their thinking. Or you can even say, can you repeat that? I couldn't understand you. I feel like they give them a good starting point. So for the students who aren't sure of what they want to say or how they want to get their ideas out, they at least have a point and some choices that can lead them into what they want to say.
The most thing I'm interested in and I'm grateful is Saduta talked and walked when he is a baby because I never see a baby talk and walk like this.
I got the same answer.
Okay, so what about if you look up here at the talk moves, what could you say that again?
I have a connection to what she said. Diana.
Better. My role is to be explicit in what I'm asking them to do and also modeling ways to improve the discussion. I like that everyone's sharing their ideas. Make sure, like how Michael responded to someone else, I want to hear talk moves too, okay? Part of it's having the confidence that it's okay if they mess up, having the stars up there so they have something to kind of lean on and a crutch.
And I agree with what Davin said because he wants to have a better life than he being spoiled.
I want them to get to a point where their conversation is more authentic and where they're engaging with each other at higher levels. Perfect.
So we're just going to think about a video and what are the different talk moves that Miss Groves describes. I think sometimes it's so important that as we build routines in children, and even especially because, you know, I'm with elementary students, to give them those prompts because they just get tongue-tied in a group discussion or a debate. So, and why are these helpful? And then, of course, how could you adapt these talk moves for use in your classroom? So for lack of time, of course, we're not going to take any responses, but do think about these as you go ahead. Teaching Channel gives you some fabulous videos, but it is a paid site. It gives you 3 videos to watch free and then you have to pay for it. But do look that up. So let's go back and think about what are some of the discussion guidelines. So it's very important to set certain essential agreements or norms in our classroom. So maybe like wait 3 seconds after someone speaks, or if you have already spoken, 3 people have to speak before you can speak. And then of course you have other norms like share the air or step forward or step back, have some warm calls. But very important is to try and encourage people who haven't contributed much. Do a shout out and say, anybody who'd like to contribute who hasn't spoken too much. It's so important to then go on to thinking about inclusive classrooms. So we're going to start off by thinking about the different tools and the strategies. What is a back channel? Well, a lot of us use these tools, but we don't know their back channels. It's a digital conversation that runs concurrently to a face-to-face discussion. Why do we need a back channel? Well, now that in a virtual classroom, we definitely need it. Even in a face-to-face, you can use it. So basically have students brainstorm, instant formative assessments. So there you are discussing something and the students are writing down their reflections or their answers simultaneously. Have students share resources. So maybe they can share articles or post links. And then of course for feedback, it's a great tool for doing feedback in the moment or as you move along. Now, these are some of the examples that you see of a back channel. Of course, there are many more as you go ahead, but just a few tools that we're going to use today, and you can use it with your children. So another one of my favorite quotes is, there are painters who transform the sun into a yellow spot, but there are others who, with the help of their art and their intelligence, transform a yellow spot into a sun. Now, this speaks a lot about something also very close to my heart. And we are going to do a quick poll again, where I want everyone to give me one word for student agency. So I'm going to quickly pause this, and you need to go back into the poll, move the slide, and it's the same password, if you may so call it. So we do have some responses coming in. So quickly just sharing, I think I was waiting for the choice word to come in. And of course, as we go on more, you'll see, ownership. That's, again, what I was looking for. And acceptance of what? Students' ideas, students' perspectives. And that's really what makes inclusive classrooms happen. So let's quickly, again, to lack of time and not being able to really complete this, but yes, this is again something that I can share. We can look at all the responses that came in. So again, this is another strategy you can use in your classrooms, another back channel as you're talking and students can put in a word. So thank you everyone for sharing your responses. So looking at this response, I would say start with something you know well. And I think that's what you know well, the words that you put out there, and build from there. And I think when I say that, for me, it's building relationships. How do you really build relationships? We've all going to either get for school not started or already got children who are new to our classrooms, who we've not met physically. They're all virtual. So how do we really get to know these children? So a good strategy or some protocols you can use is the icebreakers. So let's look at some examples of icebreakers. I think this is a really interesting game, and it can be used at all levels of the school. It's called the discussion game. So now either these could be cards that the children could make at home, or you could probably make them and send them out to your children, and they could probably just do prints or make similar ones. Now the idea is that when you put out a discussion prompt or a question, students would play one card. So they can play either I feel, I think, I know, or even a question, or maybe even speak about a connection.
Ma'am, could you please reshare the screen?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just start again. This is a discussion game, quickly. Each student gets a number of different colored cards, and you can either send them out, or the kids could make them. The moment you put out a discussion question, the kids could probably raise their cards, and they would say, I feel, I think, I know. And quickly, everybody becomes part of the discussion, and the teacher can go about to each of them. If you want to really give them points, you can give them points. Now, once they've played a card, they cannot play that card again. But the question card can be played as many times, because remember, we really want kids to ask questions and dig deeper and make their own inquiries. So this is really a fun tool, and at a glance on a Zoom screen or any screen that you're using as a virtual platform, you can see the diversity and you can see the participation that will happen in your classrooms. So again, what are the advantages? It engages every student. It scaffolds student-centered classroom in two ways. Firstly, the game is centered on your concept, your big idea. Students have to be engaged with that. And second, it models the many ways you can contribute to it. So everybody doesn't have the same prompt. Again, so you see students are listening and everybody can be a part of it. If you like to add a back channel, so if you want to make it non-verbal, you can add one of the back channels and then make it non-verbal. And kids could respond to the questions and write out the different prompts or the cards that they would like to talk about. Going into the second one, again, trying to find out who your students are. I think cultural X-rays or identity charts are so important. So maybe we could use the Jamboard. So let's quickly look at a Jamboard. And for people who don't know how to use it, I'm just going to quickly look at the Jamboard. Okay, everybody see? Sorry, okay. So if you see, this is the Jamboard. I've probably made a Jamboard. Jamboard is a tool available in Google, in your Google Suite. And you can just put them up and create any Jamboard you like. It's like any board you can use in a classroom for kids to contribute. So this is my Jamboard. Now I can take any sticky. I've got a yellow sticky. I'll kind of put something down that I like music, and that becomes part of my Jamboard. Similarly, you can create a Jamboard for every student in your class. So that's Jill's. We move on to the next, that's Jack, and so on and so forth. So again, you see, everybody is working together, and you will have everybody's cultural identities there. People can look at each other. They probably know, oh, he likes football, so do I like. Oh, he likes to do this. Or I can take help for him from this. So again, going back to your intelligences and trying to see what are the strengths in the classroom. So who we are is so important, trying to know who our kids are in the classroom. And Jamboard is a tool that you can use again for participation. Let's come down to the little ones a bit. This is another tool that you can use. It's called Mural, which I just kind of discovered. Remember, all these tools are free to use for educators. So I'm not kind of suggesting things which you may have to pay for. So Mural is free. Sign up as an educator. So let's quickly go and look at Mural. So that basically is Mural. We're going to quickly look at Mural and how it looks. So that's what a Mural screen looks like. So here you could kind of sketch your neighbors out. You can even time the activity. And Mural has lots of templates. So if you see, I'm just going to wait for the screen to open. It has many templates. I can kind of create a new template. I have my rooms. There are other rooms. And if you look at some of the templates, they have a huge amount of templates which are there, and you can use any of these templates either for leadership meetings, for students, and so on and so forth. So that's Mural. You can also probably just do a simple with the early years, just look at your neighbors and sketch them. And that's what we did. And the children can talk about their neighbors. So again, getting to know friends in a new classroom and speak about them, because by now, I think we're almost a month down school and children know each other. So it'd be a good exercise to do at your school. Another thing that you can do again with your students or leadership team is just do a quick Zoom show and tell. So you can, ask your teams to probably just pick up an object which is close to them, or kind of bring something that represents them in some way or reminds you of someone. Now, this is just to kind of, kick off a discussion. If you're doing a unit, you can ask children to get in something related to the unit. So if you're doing something on civilizations, the kids could bring in an artifact to share and so forth. Again, we do a lot of virtual water coolers. Virtual water coolers are great ways to build in social emotional learning through the entire learning communities, be it parents, be it students, or be it the teachers. This is, you see, I've just probably done a jam board of, Thankful Tuesdays, and I had all the staff members on that Tuesday share, what they are thankful for. So it just builds a little community. And remember, again, we are living in a virtual space. It's nice to sometimes do these virtual coolers with your teams. Which one of my grade 4 teachers had done in their classroom on Friendship Day. So again, using Slido, that's another back channel tool, and that is something that you could use too. So every child just put in a message for their friend. Moving on, so from relationships, let's look at exchange of ideas. Gallery walk, bus stop, station. We've done all this in a virtual space, right? But now how do we do them we've done them in face-to-face. How do we do them in a virtual space? So gallery walk, I'm not going to open up Padlet. A lot of people are familiar with Padlet, but this is, again, something that you can use. It's one of my favorite tools, but remember, again, you get 8 Padlets or 5 Padlets free, and then you have to pay for it. So basically, here the teacher said, pick up a type of bridge and research its history. What's unique in this Padlet is the timeline. So you can create a timeline, have every student, so you can format your Padlet and choose from the options you like. Here it's a timeline. That way, every student has been able to contribute in a systematic way, and you can see all their presentations together. And children can even see each other's. Okay, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is a leadership protocol, but of course you can always use it with students in a unit where you feel appropriate. A bus stop strategy, you can use any back channel again. So what we're going to quickly do is take 30 seconds in the audience and think which one of these photos or pictures describes your teaching or leadership style. And if you really quickly want to share why. So Lata will just probably do 30 seconds because I'm very mindful of time.
So we have a few D's here. We have an E also.
Okay, so we can see the A lot of people are coaches here. They like to empower. Okay.
Somebody has said A and D together.
Okay, so you want to be a compass and a lighthouse. Awesome.
Somebody says C, rowing and sailing together.
Okay. Yeah, it's not easy rowing that boat unless you are in sync. That is so important. So great.
An A and C. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everyone for sharing. So again, you see, this is such a powerful tool. I could just put up all these pictures on a Padlet, and your children can view it, or your leadership team, teachers, and you put out anything. It could be different things. Just quickly debriefing this protocol. Again, very important to do after every protocol. How did the protocol help people transition and get their voice in the room? How comfortable were you in sharing feelings? And what would you change, or how would you use this with a group with whom you're working? So again, if you had a Zoom breakout, I would do this even in a Zoom breakout, where everybody could then talk about their pictures and we could move around the breakout rooms. Another quick tool is doing station rotations using HyperDocs. So if you're not familiar with HyperDocs, do look it up. It's a great resource. It's a lot like links that you put together like a Nearpod, but very different. So again, as a teacher, I would use the HyperDoc essentials, which is engage, explore, explain. I would set up some learning experience for each of these, and the kids could then use a back channel or any tool to kind of share their reflections. Again, these tools are open to everyone, and children can read each other's, or they can work in teams or groups. So again, do look up HyperDocs. This is a quick example where children have used an answer garden for an engaged question, and then moved on to a Padlet, and then of course use Google Forms to actually create their own lesson. Feedback, where we all need feedback, and so do the students. It's not always teachers giving feedback. So I think peer feedback is so important when you speak about student voice. So this is just a quick example. If you see on the left, you'll see team 1 project. Now what you would do is you can have every team put their project idea, and then next to it, or in the slides that follow, I've used Google Slides here, you would put up 4 different slides, or use another platform which says clarifying questions, probing questions, recommendation, and resources. Now, what other students would do is look at this project design and put out their clarifying questions or their probing questions to this team. That way you will see that peers are giving a quick feedback to each other. And remember, all this is positive critique. We need to build positive critique in our classrooms or even within our leadership teams. Moving on then with feedback, this is again something we did at school, in grade 4, where they used Slido and asked children what were some of the new words you learned through the week. Really quickly, if you've used these words or tried to use some words in language and you're looking for them to be used in your writing, it's a quick recap to know what your children know. Brainstorming. Well, again, we used to have those stations that we used to move around with. So very important, again, you could use either Google Slides or the Padlet and think about, what is it that you really want children to discuss or brainstorm about. Just some good quick factors is questions. What question have you put forward to the students? And every student, so each of the stations would have a different question. And what children would do is visit each of these through an online platform and put in their ideas. So in Padlet, you have a comment feature. If you enable the comment feature, the children will be able to comment. So everyone comments on it. And of course, then you have it's timed. And then you can come back in the end as a class. Now, I have used Google. I'm not going to go into this right now, but Google News, if nobody's used this, it's fabulous. It's part of your Google Suite. And if you can use this, it has so much. Let me quickly share with you. I'm just going to pause and quickly share. If not, and out of that, you can have lots and lots of discussions emerging out, having kids make their own questions. This is what Google News looks like. Now, if you see here, it has business, it has technology. So depending on your grade level, depending on the questions, what you're inquiring into, students can look at any of this, pick up news for the day or a discussion topic, put it onto their slide as station 1 and station 2, and that's how it continues. Other students can contribute to that. So we come back. So that was brainstorming. So again, you see it is possible. Open space. Open space again is something that really works well with a little bit, a senior school or with the teaching or the leadership teams. It's a new protocol, and this is where you give absolute voice or agency to the leadership or the teachers or the students, where the students come up with their own questions, they're responsible for their own learning engagement, and then the teacher is only participating as a learner and the observer. So open space, do look up open space, you get lots and lots of ideas with that. This is another tool that you use for making mind mapping or using a lot of connections, Lucid Chart. We've just started using this tool, and again, it can be put into your Google Suite, and you can, so here you see children are just brainstorming and building prior knowledge about biomes, and this is what they were doing. And now they can start making connections, and there are a lot of templates for the same. So Lucid Chart is something else that you can look up. So quickly, we've looked at relationships, we've looked at engagement. Now let's quickly look at collaboration, discussion, and what are some of the virtual tools for that. Now for this, you'll definitely need a breakout. So whichever tools you're using, online platform, but even if you're not, once in a week, it's okay to use a Zoom platform if you can, because it's going to really, really create a lot of inquiry discussions, which are going to be helpful and give students voice. So again, there you would split the kids into the breakout rooms, and then they would come back again to the main room. So let's quickly do a quick exercise. I don't know how it's going to work in a chat box, but I still wanted to give you all a feel, but it would work better in a breakout room. So this is something you might be familiar with, Think, Pair, Share. You add a snowball to it. So snowball just kind of rolls into many discussions. So what holds students back from participating in a discussion? Would everybody quickly write your response in the prompt, in the chat box? So Lata can probably share. So you write down, and I'm going to give you the next step. So just a quick response. We're going to look at 2, 3. Now, once you've done yours, what you need to do is find another person in the chat box and see what they've written and just chat with them.
I think a lot of them say the fear of being wrong.
Okay.
Rejection. Lack of confidence. Being shy.
So if you
of apt words. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Lata. So again, if you could put this in a breakout room, you can keep moving your pairs into and go into the discussion. So again, I'm quickly moving on because I can see time ticking. And again, think about how you can use Snowball in your classroom and how it creates inclusivity and how it can include every child into the discussion. Fishbowl. Fishbowl is another strategy we've used in our face-to-face. Again, you can use it in your virtual classroom. You can set out a prompt. So let's look at some of the variations that you can do. So again, a fishbowl works in such a way that there is one team at the center and there are kids around. So the middle team is the actors, and then the periphery would be the audience. So again, you can variate if you have opposing positions. So say face-to-face or online. So maybe the first team could discuss face-to-face. Online ones would listen, then they would come in and the face-to-face would go outside. Similarly, you could use it for book clubs where every child could bring a statement from a book. First group would begin, the others would listen, and then so on and so forth. So again, this can be done in a breakout room where you put few kids together, few as the actors and the few as the audience. And then of course they change. And then, of course, with every strategy you use, it's very important that we debrief, reflect, evaluate their performance as listeners, provide suggestions how you could improve the quality, ask questions, who said something you considered meaningful or who didn't get an opportunity. This is another tool, World Cafe. I think, again, a lot of people may have used it. It's a non-verbal tool. So again, you could use a whiteboard or an annotate tool, and you can get groups to kind of just sketch out or doodle their ideas on a discussion prompt. Now, what happens in this is, if you have 4 tables or 4 groups, one person from that group will stay back. So I will move in a Zoom breakout all the other participants and leave one. So those others become my ambassadors and keep traveling with different ideas. And if you see, by the end of this, there's a cross-pollination of ideas and people are very well connected with what's happening with the discussion prompt or the theme of the classroom. So again, please read up these. These are great tools, but again, view them virtually. The teacher has to be skilled in using a breakout room to kind of possibly manage World Cafe. Again, so this is what it looks really in a virtual, but you can use the whiteboard tool, as I said, or the annotate tool in any of your meeting platforms. And then one person stays back in that group, the others move around. And then how can we make learning visible? So whatever's collected on a whiteboard, then that can be created into a story or make it into an idea cluster. You can put it out in a Padlet and kids can look at it as and when they want to. How can leadership teams use this? We'll convert the World Cafe into something new that's called nested conversations. So say equity right now is such a buzzword, and I've seen it more than ever when I was a year in the US. So, again, talking about this is something where every table can just quietly kind of draw or, stretch their ideas on what they feel about this particular article that I've put out there. And then again, there's a table host who stays back and the others keep moving. So brings great collegiality. People are able to express their ideas non-verbally, and it's a great tool for even leadership teams. This is something also which was really fun. It's called the Cyber Sandwich, and you can use it with Google Slides. So again, you need to think of the question, and you put out all these slides together. The first slide would then have student number 1 write his notes, student 2 would write his notes. They would then come together. So this is where it goes different. They come together and then they share what both of them know, then go back and again write what they have learned and think about independently what they have gained from sharing their ideas. Again, a super tool to use, especially with upper primary and middle school. It's called the 4 A's text protocol. Use any text. And you can ask students these questions. So what are your assumptions about the author of the text? What do you agree with? What do you argue? What do you aspire? Now, what's great about this is you can either pick up any one. So you could pick up the yellow, post it, and everybody could just talk about assumptions. Or people could pick up any. So you see there's a lot of choice and collaboration. And as a teacher, you will see a lot of responses coming up. Again, participation to its best with student voice. How can we use this with leadership teams? So again, you pick up what you'd like to discuss or debate with your leadership teams. And each member will then say, which of the text do I agree with in terms of my work? Or which text do I aspire? So currently with this pandemic and virtual, those are discussions that could happen and what we need to and what we need to. So again, individual voices coming in and then together it could lead to an open discussion. So protocols are just like shells where you can just put in content and take it further. And this is, of course, my last one, but very important, data-driven protocols. So for this, you will definitely need some data from your schools. And it's for the entire school, for leadership teams and teachers to look into. It has different phases. The first phase would be even without looking at data. So you look at some of the issues you have, these are great prompts or starters you can use with your team. You can ask your teams to kind of think about, I assume, or I predict, I wonder, or what are my questions to do with this particular thing. Then you would move on to making it visual as a team. Now you will dig a bit into the data and you will try and sort it out visually, use different colors so that, it's kind of self-explanatory to everybody as to what is the data that we now have on our hands. And then phase 3, we're going to start analyzing. Now, this is a crucial phase where you really need to read your data properly. Everybody needs to read the data and come. And be very mindful of using, because we tend to use this, because, therefore, it seems, however. No, we are not going to use it anymore. We are going to start moving to, I observe that. What do I observe in my data? What are some of the patterns or trends that I notice? Or I can count that, or I'm surprised that I see. So again, diversifying participation, giving kids or teams sentence prompts, discussion prompts. Very important to do. So quickly, I'm going to wrap up and come back to my why and why we need to vary discussion formats. It creates more opportunities. As I said, we can establish a framework of who participates, reduce the risk of speaking out loud, and of course, kind of get in multiple perspectives. But I'm going to leave you with one thought. Do we always need to debrief? So let's think about that. And of course, how can we further differentiate instruction? And this is another workshop that I'm going to be doing end of this month about differentiating instruction in a primary classroom. So very important, again, it goes with choice, voice, collaboration, and how can you differentiate instruction. So if you're interested, do sign up for that. And then that's the last strategy called the whip around strategy that we're going to use. So take a moment to think about, what have you heard today? What is one thing you're hoping to try? What is one thing you're leaving today? And share an aha moment or one sentence about your learning. So this is, that's the link, and Lata can put it on the chat and you can see the tool. And I'm going to quickly move on to questions, but you can keep going ahead and filling that tool. And this is another back channel tool that you can use in your classroom called the Answer Garden. Just a few credits, of course, these lovely slides. I'm a very visual person. So again, came from Slides Carnival. A lot of photographs and colors are those credits that go there. So thank you. I've had a great time sharing these with you. And I'm open to questions now.
Thank you.
So you can keep filling the Answer Garden. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. Everyone is requested to put in their questions in the chat box. Participants on Facebook can put their questions and comments, and we will relay it here to Ms. Mahera.
If the participants have any question, please put it on the chat box so that we can ask Mahera about it. It was truly a very, very informative session, Mahera.
Thank you. I'm hoping, I think for me, the win is always when it, gets translated to students. And I hope you can write to ABEA if you've used any of this, and I'd be happy to hear from them if you've used this.
No, and as well as Mahera has also shared her email ID. You all can share with her also. Participa is conducting a session on the 20th, 21st, 28th, 29th of August. This will be a e-learning workshop for 4 days. It will be a certified program. The name of the workshop is Does One Size Fit All? Differentiating Instruction in a Primary Classroom. So if you all are willing to attend her session during those days, you all can check it out on our website. You will be getting the details. You all can sign up on that. Of course, it is charged program. You can check out for the whatever the course fee is. And Lata or Carol from our team will be sending you more details about it. You all can easily have a look at it and let us know. Yes, I think so. Someone has some question.
Yes,
if you can unmute yourself and can speak out, it will be really good. Please.
I would suggest if they can just put it in the chat box and we can ask the question then.
Okay, fine. No problem. What is it? I saw something, all Indian teachers.
I think there are 2 participants who also raised their hand. So I don't know who these participants are.
I can't understand.
I think, ma'am, there's just a lot of feedback and no questions as such. If anybody who's raised their hands, if they can quickly just put their questions in the chat box so we can get them answered.
if anybody has anything else they'd like to reach out to on my mail, I'm happy to kind of, speak to them or give them some more thoughts into something that they want to try out. So that's also possible.
You also requested to kindly fill in the feedback form. So it doesn't seem to be have any questions, I think. So
I had a lot of my teachers attend this, so I won't have to repeat it in school. So thank you everyone for attending. I think whoever's here from school and a lot of colleagues who always been around to support.
No, Mahera, as well as we do have teachers from lots of Middle East schools also.
Awesome. No, it's so nice. I think I can't see you all today, but it's so good to be part of a professional learning network, especially at these times when we can share ideas. Thank you. In fact, I want to thank ABEA, Lata, I think Mr. Hore, for kind of giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So amazing. I mean, we are really getting very, very good. Lata, anything on the Facebook?
Any questions? Anybody?
I know there's only feedback saying that they really enjoyed the session and are taking a lot of tools actually which they can use in their classroom.
Yeah, okay. This is what I was thinking. I think someone has written, thank you for this wonderful session. It involved a lot of technical know-how. Now it's time all Indian teachers have to upgrade ourselves. Yes, of course, I mean, ma'am also, whoever has written this. But I think so, Mahera also will be of the same view. It is not only Indian teachers. Of course, Indian teachers are upgrading, but it is teachers from all across the globe upgrading themselves. That is what we keep on saying it at different places, anywhere and everywhere.
Absolutely.
Teachers are trying to upgrade themselves.
And I think all the tools I shared are very easy. It's not something I grew up with. Over the last 4 months, I think I've been researching and I've been telling my teams, to kind of go into it. If you have some really dynamic teachers in your teams, we have a Tech Tuesday and we have teachers volunteering to do the Tech Tuesday. So, you can have teachers sign up. So everybody's not great, maybe tech savvy in a team, but you may have those bright spots. Now you need to identify and get them into give them a chance. So you need, it's not about student agency. It's also about teacher agency. You need to create that platform that teachers will come forward and kind of, be willing to share their ideas. I think there's a lady who's raised her hand, Swaroop Rangari. Ma'am?
I think before that, there's one question from Miss Sunita. Yes. She says, how can we use these tools for teaching Hindi language?
Absolutely. I have Hindi teachers in my school who have used this. So again, you go to your Google Translator and you can put out your questions on the slide and just translate it. So Google Translate is again a tool in the Google suite. So you can use any of those platforms with Hindi. So whether it's the breakout, all you have to do is put a Hindi prompt. And of course, you'll have to go verbal more because students won't be able to write. But students can write the answers and then put pictures up on Padlet and post their images on Padlet and share it. So it's like, a lot of teachers have used it. There are many ways. You need to start experimenting, what you can do. It's all possible.
Well, very nice. I think someone has written X session Hindi mein bhi hona chahiye. Jarur ma'am, we will be surely trying our level best and say that it can have a session in Hindi. I think so. There was someone else also, Lata, who has written something else.
There is one question, asking
how do we deal with portion? How do we deal with portion completion if we use too many tools?
Okay, so again, I go back to my why. It's not the content is yours. Please sequence it the way you like. I'm just telling you how to teach it. I'm not saying reduce your content. And in a virtual classroom, these tools are only to help you make it faster. Rather than you being the teacher and the lecturer all the time, you're just using these tools for students to collaborate and give in their voice. So it goes much faster. In fact, once you start using it and you've got a little hang of it, you'll see how quickly discussions move. So don't worry, you don't need to reduce your content. Just program it and plan it well.
Internet bandwidth is something which none of us can tell of anything. Someone has written about it that if the increase in internet bandwidth in India, it could have been flawlessly done. But anyway, that
but
we are
again,
not addressing right now.
A lot of tools I mentioned, you can use it after your visual session also. So students can use it at their own, through a Padlet, a Google slide, all can be done by students. Only if you need them to participate at that moment in your classroom, then you use it with the bandwidth that you have. And that's something we have to deal with. But a lot of them can be taken out after the Zoom sessions are over or your virtual sessions are over. So don't get worried about that. Use them.
So I don't think so anything else is there. So educators, can we sign out right now then? Any questions or I don't know. Latash, what should we do? Should we?
I think we can end this, and definitely if people are interested, do participate in Ms. Mahera's workshop. It will be far more informative than this 1 hour session. You will get to spend 6 whole hours with that. So please participate.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you, Mahera. Thank you so much for the wonderful session that you have taken. And thank you, educators, for spending this 1 hour time. Of course, it was a great session. I think so you all also must have learned a lot, and you all can implement it in your respective classroom. And we are always there. So if anything that you need to ask, so you all are most welcome to send us an email to Lata or to Mahera or to me, to our team. So we will be happy to get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lata, for all the help.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.